This is Crew Tales, Life in the Circus. In the motion picture world, there are an army of dedicated professionals who work behind the scenes to make the movies and shows we watch today. I'm Brad Hodson, and I've spent over 30 years in the motion picture industry. This podcast celebrates the people who make the magic behind the scenes. Adrian, welcome to the circus.
Thank you.
Describe what you do.
Which part? I do a bunch of things. So I am an actor. So I think everybody knows what that means. No description required. And in the last few years, I've become a producer. I like to say I'm an accidental producer. I had a friend that I was doing a lot of self-tapes during the pandemic for, and we would constantly share stories about how other people were making things, and we didn't really have a team, and we wouldn't really know what we were doing. And then one day, after like I don't know the 100th self-tape, I was like, give me your favorite short script that you have, few characters, one or two locations, and I will get it made. It was just a throwdown. And was it October of 21 we shot our first little thing? I think it was like a 5-minute queer love story in a restaurant in East Van. And yeah, since then I've been lucky enough to meet other creatives and work and make stuff with them.
So you say you're an actor, transitioning over to producing maybe, or a little bit of, do both?
In addition to at the moment, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Describe your journey thus far in your career.
How far back do you want me to go?
Well, when did you think that you had the acting bug in you?
Okay, so I grew up in the suburbs of Montreal, and I used to participate in things like choir, any of the school productions when I was really young. My parents also had me in, I say they had me in, I feel like I was tricked, but I didn't really mind after a while. But I also played violin from the time I was about 5 years old or something like that. And yeah, so those were my first elements of performing. Some things I liked about it, some things I didn't. Like for instance, on the violin side, I did not like to practice. My parents were like, "Oh, it's part of your education now. So you like while everybody else is outside playing, you have to do this first, right?" So it was one of those things. I had the odd friend towards the end of elementary school that was involved in acting in a more meaningful way. So like in grade 7, I got into a drama class. That was kind of like really cool. We were doing all kinds of fun stuff. And then I went to a high school that had no drama program. So it kind of went away. But I had these friends that were involved in like some of them were actually on TV. And I was like, how do I do this? But again, like, I recognize now that like my parents were just trying to like spread the money where they could. All right. And I was playing soccer, I was playing rugby, I was doing a whole bunch of other things. And so they were like, don't you have enough hobbies kind of thing, right? Um, Jump forward, I moved to Winnipeg. Whole family moved to Winnipeg when I was 17, just after high school. And there was a YTV show that called I think it was YTV, The Adventures of Shirley Holmes. And they were filming an episode that took place in, I mean, Africa. I'm saying it that way because it was like nondescript country. They needed, and literally on a phone pole was like, we're looking for black people to play like Africans in this thing, right? And it was background work, but I was like, oh yeah, I was really into that at one point. At this point, I don't know, I'm 2 years into an engineering degree at the University of Manitoba. I'm like, oh yeah, I really like doing that. Well, like, here's sort of like an avenue in. And I ended up like, running around the bush in Manitoba, I don't even remember what the storyline was, but like as a background performer on that, and um, that led to getting an audition for the same show another time. And the casting director said to me, "Oh, you have good instincts. Are you training anywhere?" And I was like, "Training? We're in Winnipeg, Manitoba, like so far from Hollywood, right? Like it's another dimension. It might as well be." Anyway, and like that led to um a semi-regular acting class that I ended up taking in Winnipeg, and then having friends from there that like moved on to Vancouver. Like I never I did some commercials in Winnipeg. I didn't do any theater while I was in Winnipeg. It was mostly about my like the science side of my story. But yeah, I had some friends that moved out to Vancouver, and I was when like, am I ready? Like, how do I get there? Right? They had all achieved various levels of like being on TV, and like the most at that time I had done was probably a couple of commercials in the background here and there. And I just had an acting coach, fellow by the name of Steve Braun, who was originally from Winnipeg, went and did the LA thing for a while, achieved a certain level of success. He now runs a studio in North Hollywood with Riza Bramon Garcia, who's a casting director there, but he's a Canadian dude, and he came through our class, and like he looked at me one time in a way that those really good coaches have the ability to look right through you and like past all your bullshit, and he was just like, "Why not you?" And I was like, I don't really have an answer for that. I think I just bought a house, and I was like, I left that session feeling like, okay, I guess I have to figure out how to be in Vancouver now. That's how I got here. And one thing has led to another. I've been here 15, 16 years.
So you felt the calling, but you were influenced by this coach, and saw something in you, and so you felt you had to make the decision to go. You know what? I can either stay here and do this, or go to Vancouver and do that.
Yeah, find a way to make it happen. And all kinds of things come up for you as to why you can't. And I think that like up until that moment, I had probably been focusing too much on the why I couldn't. And yeah, him and I are still in touch today. He lives back here now, and yeah, was he was a very influential person in that moment.
What is it about the motion picture industry that really excites you?
I think that the hmm, I think I am drawn to things and arts that there really is no ceiling. Like no matter how good you get at doing a thing, there's always somebody who's better. And there's I don't know, maybe I'm a masochist, but like, like it's just a constant exploration. Like, there've been a few things in my life that I've been drawn to that are sort of like that too. Like I used to skydive quite regularly, and that's a thing, right? Where you're practicing something, you know, 30 to 60 seconds at a time, and however good you get to a point, like these other guys have like got this like so much way more figured out, and that's just really cool. And like, how did you do that? You know, and I think humanity a lot of times we lose that curiosity, that childlike curiosity, that drive to discover and explore and do things just for the sake of doing it. I think this industry in particular is rife with that.
It's funny how you say there's no ceiling, but at the same time, you still have to kind of want to pull the trigger because there's also no safety net
Oh,
potentially.
100%. Yeah.
What or who are some of your influences?
Hmm. That's an interesting question. A lot of times I hear I've heard that question from people, and people also always are like, well, this actor or that director or whatever. Um, I don't feel that like in the way that they do, but I'll say this. I feel like I feel like watching well, if we go way back, don't remember the actor's name, but there was always one uh, black character in the ensemble of Mission Impossible. Like back from the original show, back way back when from the original show to like the remake they did in the 80s. And like I remember just being like at some part thinking like he was really cool because like I don't know. I don't know from then till now when I'd seen a person of color be a spy, even. Right? So there was that little nascent feeling around that. Um then I think probably Star Wars, right? As a child, like I think the first Star Wars movie I saw, well, I know the only Star Wars movie I would have seen like in theater, actually, was the drive-in. I don't know if anybody remembers what those are nowadays, but it was the drive-in.
I think they're coming back.
Was Return of the Jedi, and but just the idea that like that whole world existed, and like it was somebody's job to help like create that and to like exist in that world and like and do that make believe. Like I feel like that was also an influence. And then I got to say LeVar Burton. Yeah, LeVar Burton as Geordi LaForge on Star Trek. Like I've always been a science fiction kind of like nerd. Um, I didn't mention this earlier because you asked me what I did, but like, or maybe when I went to University of Manitoba, I was doing a computer engineering degree, and I feel like it is in part because Geordi LaForge was an engineer on the Enterprise. Like, I, I, I went through like, am I doing computer science? I don't really know. I remember being like 6 or 7 years old and thinking that like, oh my gosh, like trucks are really like loaders and dump trucks are really cool and like that
Mechanical
would
stuff,
mechanical
yeah.
stuff that would be really cool. And I said to someone like, who like does this? And someone had said, oh, it's an engineer. And so like that kind of got in my head. And so all of these things have sort of like kind of come together and coalesced in terms of like me ending up being able to be an actor and represent story and characters that I didn't necessarily see all the time when I was growing up.
Right. So it kind of came to you uh, slowly, as opposed to like an epiphany one day where it was like, I just got to be on the stage or I got to be in front of the camera.
Yeah, it was definitely more of a slow burn. And I think, I mean, there's several things at play. One of those things is that as a child of immigrant parents, like they're all about your survival. And, you know, like for instance, when I wanted to quit violin, and I don't really play anymore, but when I wanted to quit, my mom would always tell me like, well, you have to have something to fall back on. And that's how they were seeing it, right? So being like, I want to run away to the circus or I want to do was like uh was not really an option, right? Like it was nothing that they were necessarily going to easily support unless I was that like one in a million that like hit something right out of the gate where they could see that it was something, right? So honestly, I really like we talked about the story about me coming to Vancouver, but that didn't happen until I was in my 30s. So like I have a science degree. I had a house. Like I checked off all the boxes, right? So that I could just kind of get up and go. Yeah. And my mom, in fact, did ask me at one point, she was like, why are you going to Vancouver? And I was like, I think it's just something I have to do. And she was like, okay. Like at that point, there was nothing to say.
Right.
Yeah.
But you kind of had, we talked earlier about a safety net. You kind of had a bit of a safety net set up, which gave you the impetus to kind of go, okay, well, maybe I could take a stab at this because
Yeah.
I got my base.
And to be honest, like still do. Like a lot of people don't know this, but I work a full-time job in IT. Yeah, about 15 odd years ago, it's sort of naturally transitioned into a job that I was working from home. And I was like, okay, if I'm working this from home, and it probably doesn't matter where I am, So let me see if I can make this Vancouver thing work. Yeah. And I mean, I literally didn't tell them I was going anywhere. I like sort of left Winnipeg and I came out here and I stayed for a week and I just worked and nobody said anything. And so I went back and I came back again and I did it for almost a month and nobody said anything. And I was like, okay. And then the next time I came back, I got a lease in a place. And so that was the start of me coming out here.
Wow. Very pragmatic way of doing it.
Immigrant parents, man, I'm telling you, right? Like,
Fair enough. Do you have a particular project you've worked on that stood out for you or that you're particularly proud of?
I mean, in some ways, like from the producer side of things, any of the stuff that we made, I'm really proud of. Um, Probably a moment that I think about a lot in terms of the acting side of things was a play I did with now a group of friends. At the time, I didn't know each and every person in the group, called The Shipment by Young Jean Lee. She's a Korean American playwright that wrote, no, it's going to sound funny, but she wrote a black play that dealt with um, African American stereotypes in the media and just stereotypes in general. She did it by workshopping with African American actors, and the play has several different parts to it. The last part being basically like a send up to your like classic Broadway like living room scene, because when she asked them as a group collectively what it is that you've always wanted to play that you've never really gotten to play, and they were just like, we just want to do like normal stuff like everybody else does. We don't want to be like this tiny slice of, society just represented. So that's what that piece was. Anyway, it was 5 actors, all black, which is something that doesn't happen very often in Vancouver. So to get to do that was really special. And one moment that I remember in particular was there was I think they were from either studio or VFS. Uh, some days where we had some film students or some theater students in, and one of them stopped me after and was just like, "You changed my life." I didn't know theater could be like that. And that, like, to this moment, like, I was like, okay, I don't have to do anything again.
That's really cool. Explain a little more to me. Was this play a one act play? Was it a short?
I mean, short is about 75 minutes,
Okay.
75,
So,
85 minutes. Yeah. Um, it, it it's a really interesting play if anybody ever gets the chance to see it, because it's got like, there's like a dance section, there's a deconstructed minstrel show, there's and it just kind of flows from one thing to another. Um, yeah, it was kind of controversial. We did it at one point in North Vancouver at because it got remounted a couple years ago or a couple years after we all came back, and yeah, we had an audience member like yell at the stage and walk out of the theater during the performance.
wow.
Oh, I mean, it's meant to stir
Get
up
a
emotion,
reaction.
and get people to think. And
Yeah.
there's a few different sections in it that like go in pretty hard. And if people are uncomfortable about their biases or what they're like, yeah,
Well, that's what live theater is about, or should be about.
totally,
Yeah.
totally. And it's why it's kind of one of my favorites. It was just like even for us every night, like you really never knew what you were gonna get.
Right. Outside of the film industry, do you have any projects, anything you do to as a hobby or while the day away between projects?
I feel like these days I'd say no. I mentioned before I used to skydive. That was like a very prominent part of my life for a while. I keep thinking about getting back to it, but it's a little bit of a process. Um, yeah, because between my what I refer to as my day job, of which also like acting and auditioning has become like almost equally as important, and then trying to get other projects off the ground, and then trying to have like any kind of social life. There's not a lot of time left. But things that I think about skydiving, and lately, for whatever reason, I've been thinking a lot about aviation, and I'm like, maybe when I get my pilot's license, is that something to do? I don't know.
I think it's a fabulous idea. What's next for you?
Well, right now, myself and a partner have created a web series of which we've already written 3 episodes of a 6 episode arc. We've been fortunate enough to get some funding to produce it. So we're working with a new producer right now to try and drum up the rest, and hopefully in the next 8 to 10 months we'll be writing the back 3 episodes of that and getting that shot. Yeah.
Good for you. I'm going to throw a little curveball question now.
Mhm.
I asked this of all my guests, and I don't know whether you have an answer for it or not, but have you seen the industry? Two questions, two part. Have you seen the industry change for you since you started? And if so, what's the biggest change? And then, second part of that question, has AI been a part of any of this change?
Mm. Wow, that's a big question. That's actually, I guess, it's kind of several questions. Has AI? I'm going to start at the back, because has AI been a part of this change so far? I'm going to say no on the AI side. I say so far because people every day are finding new ways to integrate AI. Um, but yeah, so far, no way that I see. You know, I'm sure some of the people I've hired to do sound design or whatever have cleaned up audio using AI, but it's no way that that I can see. Um, the other part of the question, from an acting perspective, I'll say yes. It's changed in many ways. I want to say that at least for a period of time, it was expanded in terms of, like, for instance, when I first came here to Vancouver, the only things that I feel like I ever got seen for, like in mass, was like cop, security guard, truck driver. Like, you can sort of see where I'm going.
Mm.
Um, I feel like the pandemic was good for that, because there was a bunch of things happening in society at that moment, which opened up the floodgates a little bit in terms of like, oh well, hold on, we have people of color here who can do more than that as well. I think it helped that, like, it was a little bit more difficult to justify bringing Americans up to do things that we could do. Right. So, your number ones, your number twos, because they have a star system and they put people in seats or eyeballs on television. Yeah, they would bring them up. But like, it was at that point during the pandemic that I was probably the busiest I've ever been in terms of the widest um, arc of things that I was ever able to audition for. And every now and then some of those things would hit, and that would be like really cool. Like, I got to do this now, or people see me this way. So I feel like that's been a change over the time that I've been involved on the acting side.
Brilliant. Adrian, thank you for being on the circus.
Thanks for having me.
Well, that about wraps it up for another episode of Crew Tales, Life in the Circus. I'd like to thank our producers Dustin Schwinnard and Dustin Girton, as well as our technical producer Rob Hunt. I'm Brad Hodson. Thank you for joining us.